Sup fam? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Luffy, and this is my intro. I don't know how to do an intro. Which Metal Gear Solid game should you start with? You've heard the hype, and you want to jump into Metal Gear Solid, but with nearly 30 years of gaming packed into the series, you aren't sure where to start. The first in the series seems like an obvious place to jump in, but is it the game that best introduces the plot in MGS while also showcasing the core stealth mechanics, and almost more importantly, does it make it easy to springboard into the next game in the series? So rest assured, there will not be any spoilers in this video, though I am going to talk about the plot twist that happens right at the beginning of MGS 2, the one with so much controversy, you know the one. If you don't know which one I'm talking about, and you don't want me to spoil it for you, then honestly you should start with MGS 1 and experience the twist as it was meant to be experienced, and also bring a pillow to punch, and good luck. When deciding which Metal Gear Solid game to start with first, we need to decide which game best answers the following questions and why it's Metal Gear Solid 2. So 1. What are the core game mechanics of Metal Gear Solid and which game best exemplifies those mechanics? 2. What is MGS's overarching story and which game best introduces this story premise? And 3. Which MGS makes it easiest to transition to another game in the franchise? Starting with, what are Metal Gear Solid's core game mechanics? We all know MGS is a pioneer of stealth gaming. I mean, it's right there on the back cover. Confidential case files telling us to stay quiet and stay in the shadows, to keep enemies from hearing us or seeing us and blowing our mission. From the beginning, we're talking from the 80s, back when the OG Metal Gear series came out in 1987. These games focused on stacking the odds against us to encourage stealth gameplay. We're thrown into missions without equipment and told to procure all weapons and items needed on site. Towards the end, when we've amassed enough weapons to become that one-man army, it's still not a good idea to rush around, guns blazing, as enemies are quick to organize against us in deadly strike teams. Levels are designed to provide natural cover and alternate pathways to avoid discovery, and as the series progresses, these levels feel more and more natural. In the first MGS, there are stacks of cargo boxes that we can duck around for cover, and in MGS 3, we're in the thick of the jungle and have to make use of the surrounding trees. In the first open-world MGS, MGS 5 gives us the opportunity to take advantage of cliffs overlooking enemy bases and more natural terrain to duck around in behind. Every game puts an emphasis on camo, either pointing out that you've got the best in stealth suits and sometimes even letting you choose between different outfits to best blend into your surroundings. All things considered, which MGS has the best stealth gameplay? MGS 5 hands down. I can't even. As each MGS takes what it learns from the last iteration and builds upon it, it cannot be a surprise that the latest in the franchise, we don't talk about Metal Gear Survive, has the best stealth gameplay. MGS 5's open world gives you the most options in terms of approaching a mission, and the AI is delicious to mess with. MGS 5 introduces sandstorms and rain, both of which can be used to conceal you as you sneak around enemies, and if you haven't popped out of a sandstorm to grab someone, you're not living. Every MGS comes with its own unique mechanics as well. MGS 2 has dog tag collecting, and MGS 4 has you manage a stress gauge. Which MGS has the mechanic that added the most to gameplay though? It's a tie between MGS 2 and MGS 3. Both feature a collectathon mechanic that is a ton of fun to pour time into. MGS 2 has you lifting dog tags off of anyone and everyone around you, and MGS 3 encourages you to chomp down on every critter you come across and get Snake's personal rating of how delicious it is. Both of these additional mechanics encourage us to hone our stealth skills. MGS 5 also lets you collect animals, though unfortunately not for eating, as both Kaz and Ocelot will remind you. Though it's really not as satisfying as making a guard wiggle to give up his dog tag or biting into raw snake and declaring, "Tasty." For core mechanics, MGS 5 is the winner, but for additional gameplay mechanics, MGS 2 and MGS 3 take the cake. And in MGS 3's case, eat it! What is MGS's overarching story and which game best introduces it? Oh boy, how long do we have? Starbomb simplifies it the best.
You sneak around and save the world. The end!
You sneak around and save the world. The end. You're a sneaky boy who has to save the world from nuclear conflict, usually with a Metal Gear involved. Otherwise, the series would just be called Solid. So which MGS best introduces the plot? Metal Gear Solid is separated into two timelines, where we follow Solid Snake or Naked Snake. The franchise starts with Solid Snake, and it would seem like a no-brainer to start with Metal Gear Solid, right? Wrong. There's nothing wrong with starting with Metal Gear Solid and working your way through the rest of the franchise. However, the first MGS is actually a continuation of the Metal Gear series that debuted in 1987. And since those two are so far out of the running of should you play them first, we're not even going to talk about them, it makes Metal Gear Solid itself a little tricky to follow. Characters are introduced with the assumption that we know who they are, Gray Fox being a great example, and cataclysmic moments in Metal Gear 1 and 2 are referenced. You can get a feel for the impact these characters and happenings had on the characters of Metal Gear Solid 1, but there always feels like there's something missing, and with an already overly complicated storyline, things can get tangled up quickly. Taking a break from Snake, MGS 2 follows Raiden, a rookie with the newly reformed Foxhound unit. Having been trained through VR missions, we hop into Baby's first real mission as he's tasked with taking down a group of terrorists threatening to destroy an offshore cleanup facility and kick off the worst environmental disaster in history if they're not paid $30 billion. Raiden is quickly overwhelmed and bowled over constantly by unpredictable and convoluted plot points, and if you've never played MGS before, you'll relate to how he struggles to keep his feet under him. MGS 2 is the only MGS game that isn't really a sequel and doesn't really rely on prior knowledge of the series to understand what's going on. The point is to be a little lost and confused and to have to fight to put the pieces you're given together to complete the puzzle that is the plot and motivations for the supporting cast around you. Because of this, MGS 2 introduces the theme of spies sneaking around and fighting to save the world from nuclear destruction thoroughly, as it also needs to explain this to Raiden, a baby spy with no prior experience or knowledge of MGS's themes. So what about Naked Snake? Where do we start off in his timeline, and does it make sense to pick it as our first foray into Metal Gear Solid? MGS 3 is a campy masterpiece. The entire series is a love letter to 80s spy movies, but none of the games in the franchise are more of a love letter than MGS 3. As the start of Big Boss's story, MGS 3 does an excellent job of laying out the storyline and characters in a way that makes sense for new-time players, as this is the first time anyone in the series meets most of these characters. MGS 4, MGS Peace Walker, MGS Ground Zeroes, and MGS 5 are all sequels to another in the series, making them a bad pick for a first MGS game. As continuations in the series, all of them expect us to have a grasp of MGS-specific concepts, like nanomachines and the Patriots. So which MGS introduces the plot the best? MGS 2 and MGS 3 have protagonists at the start of their journey, Raiden's first real mission, and Big Boss's first step towards earning his title. Because we're starting at the beginning of our protag's journey, both lay out the overarching themes and story of MGS and introduce characters without assuming you might know who they are already. MGS 2 has an edge over MGS 3 though, as it introduces more characters in the franchise than MGS 3 does, and it makes it much easier to hop forwards, backwards, any which direction in the series once you've beaten the game. Speaking of which MGS makes it the easiest to transition to another game in the franchise? MGS 2 opens the door to MGS 4 and even MGS 1 as it provides better context for what's happening in the first Metal Gear Solid if you haven't played Metal Gear 1 or 2. Because Raiden has no clue what's going on, characters and relationships are more clearly outlined and explained. The first time I played through MGS 1, I had no idea who Gray Fox was, and so the relationship he and Snake share and later events in the game were completely lost on me. There aren't any moments like this in MGS 2, as the relationships are either related to Raiden, and we're deepening them with him, or outside of Raiden. So it's okay if we don't understand them, because neither does Raiden. The immersion in MGS 1 is broken when you're left wondering why our main protag, Snake, is so choked up about something that we have no context for. MGS 2 not only provides better context for stepping backwards into MGS 1, but it also is the stepping stone for its sequel, MGS 4. We see a ton of familiar faces return in MGS 4, and by this point in the franchise, MGS expects us to know who these people are and what their motivations are, and lucky for us, MGS 2 lays a firm foundation for the returning cast in MGS 4. Concepts we learned about in MGS 2, like nanomachines, are expanded upon in MGS 4 as well. MGS 2 also opens the door to MGS 3, as we're teased with mentions of characters featured in the next installation in the franchise. For MGS 3, the game kicks off Big Boss's timeline, and it makes it easy to jump into the next step in his story, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, which leads to MGS Ground Zeroes and then MGS 5. MGS 2 has the edge as it opens up the potential to step into MGS 3, but MGS 3 can't boast the same for MGS 2. There's nothing in MGS 3 that leads backwards, or will make anything in MGS 2 make more sense by playing it first. MGS 1 only offers MGS 2 as the game that makes the most sense to step into next, so MGS 2 offers the most branching pathways away from it. Alright. So, which Metal Gear Solid game should you jump into first? Surprisingly, Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid 2 boasts solid stealth mechanics with extra rewards for players that get really good at it, like collecting dog tags. Takes the time to explain plot points and characters as those dealing with new players, as the protagonist himself is new to the series, and makes it easier to jump forwards and backwards into the series and even to hop timelines. Something else I also wanted to mention was MGS2, especially if you play on the HD collection or the Substance collection, I'm sorry, I can't say that word, which is pretty much just like remakes or remasters of MGS2. The controls are much, much easier to step into for new-time players than MGS1, which is, you know, a game that debuted on the PlayStation. So every Metal Gear Solid game, you know, just as I mentioned before with MGS5, every single Metal Gear Solid game really takes the mechanics from the previous game and just hones them and hones them and hones them and hones them. So if you're not used to playing older games, MGS1 can kind of be a tough game to get into because you have to step into those older mechanics. So MGS2, especially the remakes like the HD collection, is much, much easier for new-time players to step into and get a hold of, or get a handle on. Okay, and that's that. I hope I've convinced you to play Metal Gear Solid. I hope that I've convinced you to play it. Hopefully, and you know, and wherever you start with Metal Gear Solid, whatever you start with in the franchise, let me know in the comments below. If you've already played the entire series, which was your first Metal Gear Solid game, and what would you have preferred to have been your first Metal Gear Solid game? You know, did you understand what was going on? Did you? No, no one does. No one understands what's going on in Metal Gear Solid, so I don't even know why I asked that. But definitely let me know, which was your first Metal Gear Solid game, and if you haven't played before, which is the first one that you're planning on playing? Thanks so much for checking out my video. We stream Wednesdays and Fridays right now, usually Metal Gear Solid. Join our Discord. We're usually talking about Metal Gear Solid in Discord. We're all about Metal Gear Solid. So, oh, check out my Instagram. I post dumb MGS art that I draw, like Venom Snake Mimikyu. If you want to see some dumb MGS art, check out my Instagram. And I will see you all next time. Take care of yourselves. Like and subscribe. All that good stuff. If you know someone who wants to play Metal Gear Solid or has never played Metal Gear Solid before, share this video with them, and I will catch you all next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.